Awesome. And I know you might hear that music playing still. I was on the YouTube channel here real quick. So it looks like we have some folks on YouTube, looks like we have some folks on LinkedIn and even Twitch. So thank you guys all for joining and good evening. Brandon, how are you this evening?
I'm good. A lot to cover. I know we'll have to just say thanks, guys, for being supportive last week. Joel had to run a little conflict of scheduling, but yeah, we're back and going tonight. As you guys know, this happens in cybersecurity. You know, we're just so busy right now with everything that's going on, but a lot to cover today. What about yourself? How's things with you, Joel?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you for apologizing for me. I feel like it's my turn to give a little explanation. So I have blocked off my calendar from basically 5:30 till 9:30 on Tuesdays, and I tell everybody Tuesdays is not a good day, right? Don't book anything on Tuesday for me. I won't make it. Well, we jumped into Thursdays and they book webinars probably about a month in advance for me, right? That I do with a number of generals at my organization and top engineers and data scientists, et cetera. And I had overbooked and didn't realize it until HR reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you getting on this?" And I was like, and I just froze. So I'm sorry for jumping off early. It actually kind of worked out because we were right at the end of the IoT section. So today, though, OT, ICS, SCADA, I hope you guys are ready. We got a lot of really quality content for you.
Awesome. Yeah, and just let us know, like Joel said, comment in the chat. Let us know where you're from. What are you guys working on right now? If you're new, I know we've got a lot of the regulars here, so thank you so much for coming out. We're going to be jumping into questions soon. If you haven't had a chance, go check out the Cyber Incision YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of times people are asking about reviewing the videos. You can go check them out there and watch the replays and all that if you want to go back through a lot of the topics that we've already covered. Make sure you subscribe, click on the bell so you get notifications of the videos. Joel's put in the LinkedIn chat. But yeah, you can go on YouTube and just look up Cyber Incision, and then you'll find the channel. Make sure you subscribe and click on the bell so you guys get notifications. And again, like I said, we were getting a lot of people asking about, watching the replays. They're seeing it. Where can I go watch it? That's where you can go.
Yeah, and I just posted also the Google Calendar invite. So I know for me, if it's not on my Google Calendar, I don't show up, right? So there's the invite. Click it. I think Brandon, click on that for me. Make sure it pulls up in your calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, you guys can save that. So every Tuesday, Thursday, it'll add it to your Google Calendar. But join us, guys. We're helping everybody get through the CISSP, and we won't stop delivering content till it happens. Now, I did just plan a vacation in early March, so we might take a week off. But
well,
anyway,
Joel's not going to date us. We're actually going to continue. We've actually got plans after the CISSP. We actually have plans to keep going, other certifications, other knowledge. So we're going to take you guys through the journey of cybersecurity and just keep, going through certifications, knowledge, and one thing we have to do, Joel, and we forgot to talk about this. We got to get some guests on the show.
Yeah, so I actually just joined a Discord server that has a CISSP study group in it called Battleship, which is pretty cool. So I've reached out to a few people who offered, they're like, hey, I got my certification 10 years ago, but I'd be happy to join. So I've got people lined up for software development lifecycle. I've got people lined up for cloud security, and we're looking for others. So if you guys know anybody who's got their CISSP certification and is interested, please let us know. Once again, guys, if you guys could hit a thumbs up or a clap, add a comment to the chat. We want to see who's here today. So please just hit the thumbs up or clap or heart or whatever. And I would like to give some shout outs today. The people I see already on here are Salome. Thank you for joining. I see Michelle. Welcome back. I know Vivek is hopping on here shortly, and we got a few others. So welcome, everybody. Awesome. Who else do we have? Christine is in the house. Cool. We got some really good ones. Brandon says the Google Calendar link is not working. So I will try to figure that out and get you a better one next week. Fair?
Fair. Sounds good. Yeah.
Cool.
Let us know if it's working for you guys. If I think you've only posted on LinkedIn. So if you guys check out LinkedIn, comment, let us know if it's working for you guys.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. We're already a few minutes in. We want to get you a few questions. So let's go ahead and jump in. We got 4 questions for you this evening. Let me go ahead and share the screen. All right, here we go. CISSP exam prep. First one to answer the question. We are looking for the correct answer. So please, please, please throw the letter in the chat here on LinkedIn, Twitch, or YouTube. And we will be throwing that up on the screen for whoever's first. So question number 86 and the first of tonight. Brandon, one purpose of security awareness program is to modify and walk us through this, but not too fast. Let others try to get their answers in first.
Right. A, employees' attitudes and behaviors towards enterprise security posture. B, management approach towards enterprise security posture. C, attitudes of employees with sensitive data. And then D, corporate attitudes about safeguarding data. So one purpose of security awareness program is to modify. So you're not looking at, I'm going to go, backwards. D, corporate attitudes about safeguard data. No. C, attitudes of employees with sensitive data. We're not looking just specifically at sensitive data. So I would say, no, that's not incorrect. You're looking at the whole holistic view of cybersecurity and awareness. Management approach towards enterprise security posture. No, that's our controls and everything else that we're doing. So then A, employees' attitudes and behaviors towards enterprise security posture. I would say it's A.
You'd say A? Cool. Well, I know it's about 45 seconds delayed, so I will give them just a second more, but we're going to go ahead and reveal this answer. And then it is A. So, right, the security awareness program, this is probably something you do every year, but it's what organizations do to achieve the desired results of its security program. It has to communicate the what, how, and why of security to its employees, and it should change their attitudes and behaviors towards not just the enterprise's security posture, but in their daily activities. So I want to say hello. We got a few people and new people in the house. We had James Lee. I threw it up on the screen. He said hello from Singapore. James Lee, welcome. This is a study group. We are doing it specifically for CISSP, but guys, this is just great all around cybersecurity knowledge. A few more we have. Nabil from San Diego, welcome. It does say LinkedIn user because you have your LinkedIn account set to private, so it's not going to show everybody your name. Who else do we have? Thanks for the invite, Joel. This also comes from Nabil out in San Diego. And then we had Salome ask, do you know of any Security Plus study groups? And the answer is absolutely. There's actually the Discord server that I mentioned is for Security Plus and CISSP. So I will get you guys those details here at the end of that course. Great stuff. Looks like we had a couple of users say C. And then I saw Christine with the A. So Christine, well done. You got the A first. A was the correct answer for this question. All right. Well done. Good job, guys. But hey, here's the reality is today and these classes are the time to throw up the answer, right? Answer it how you would on the test and learn from it. Get better every single time.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, let's move on to question number 87. Guys, remember, first one up, I'll throw you on the screen. Here we go. What is a security policy? A high-level statement on management's expectations that must be met in regards to security. B, a policy that defines authentication of the network. C, a policy that focuses on ensuring a secure posture and expresses management approval. It explains in detail how to implement the requirements. Or D, a statement that focuses on the authorization process for a system.
So what do you think, Joe? What are you leaning towards?
Well, a security policy, I mean, we just touched on it in the last one, right? So we know, well, that was actually security awareness training, but a security policy is, once again, I'm leaning towards high-level statements around the security on a management's expectation that must be met in regards to security policy. Because if you look at B, it doesn't define authentication to a network. It's not going to be a policy that ensures a secure posture and expresses management approval, right? You're not implementing the requirements in a security policy. You're laying them out. And it's, once again, not a statement that focuses on authorization process, right? So it's got to be A. I'm going to say final answer, high-level statements on a management's expectation that must be met in regard to security. And that is A.
So we got Christina with an A as well.
Did we? Let me throw it up. Here we go. Christine, killing it. Christine McCoy, well done. And we also, for Salome's question, she said, if you guys are looking to take the Security Plus, Fanta Professor Messer on YouTube does a study group for Sec Plus, but it's only once per month. Now, there is a bunch of courses on Security Plus on YouTube, also on Safari Books. But I'll also get you the Discord channel where there's a group of users who are posting Security Plus information, and you get to decide which groups you're in. So there's also a ton of LinkedIn people looking to connect on that Discord channel.
I think there's actually a LinkedIn course as well. I think you can go and look at, and there's a little bit of information on that. There's tons of information when it comes to Security Plus. You can just do a lot of research, and then like you said, YouTube's a great free resource.
Yeah, and there's people kind of like me who have posted up videos, maybe not in the live stream format, but actual like tutorial, right, stuff on the screen. So different learning. I like the more interactive, where I get to interact with you guys. That's what it's all about. So
Exactly.
all right, well done, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to question 88. And I'm going to kick this one over to you after I read through it, Brandon. Deal?
Sounds good.
Cool. The end result of implementing the principle of least privilege means which of the following? A, users would get access to only the info for which they have a need to know. B, users can access all systems. C, users get new privileges added when they change positions. Or D, authorization creep. Brandon, over to you.
Okay, so looking at this, the end result of implementing the principles of least privileges, and then which it means to follow, right? So users would get access to only the information for which they have a need to know. So right there, to me, it's a yes. But let's go through B. B, users can access all systems. Well, that's not least privilege. Users get new privileges added when they change position. Well, then you have a run over of permissions and access. So it's not least privileges, because if they're in HR and finance, they potentially have both roles. So again, that's not least privilege. And then authorization creep, which I actually just was mentioning, is what we are just talking about with C. So the only one I feel it can be, and we're getting a whole bunch of A's in there, is A.
Yeah, it's got to be A. So let's go ahead and kick that off. It is A, right? It's definitely not those other three. But remember, when it comes to exam time, guys, take your time, read through it. So well done. We read through question 89. It's a little confusing. So let's move on to question 90. And it looks like, by the way, I just refreshed LinkedIn. It was frozen for me. We got a bunch of A's. We got Christine. We have Salome. We have Michelle. I don't think this confused any of you guys. So well done, everybody.
Yeah, they all had it. They all saw it.
Yep. Now this one is interesting because it's talking about a bank teller. So an access control policy for a bank teller is an example of the implementation of which of the following? A, rule-based policy. B, identity-based policy. C, user-based policy. Or D, role-based policy. Brandon?
So now this is a key one here. An access control policy for a bank teller. So when you look at that, that's a position, right? So is it a rule base? No, because you're not setting a rule. Is it identity base? Possibly. Is it a user base? No, because it's not John, Fred, Bob, or Alex. Is it a role base? Hold on a second. They're a bank teller. So I would go with D, role base, because it's going on the position. So that position can roll over to Fred, Bob, Alex, whoever that may be. It's the position for the role. So I'm going with D.
And the correct answer is D, role-based policy. Well done. Right, so role-based is a model where access to resources is determined by job role rather than by user account. And because it said bank teller role, right, you already know. Now
hold on. Michelle wants to see the confusing one. Do you see that?
I see that. And I responded to her in the chat. She said, why not do the confusing one? Might be useful to go through. So based on Michelle's feedback, let's go ahead and backtrack and let's do it.
So hold on. So this is the challenge here. I want Michelle to see if she can answer this for us, right? Because we are reading through it and kind of going, what? What are they saying?
Yeah, deal. And yeah, man, we should invite her on real quick. We got to get better at doing this, right? And when we call them out, we get you a link and you can hop in the live stream. Maybe next time, right? We'll get that link set and ready. But Michelle, if you're comfortable, if you guys are comfortable doing that, let us know. We'd always be happy to have you on and answer one question and walk through. She said, oh boy, I get it. We're putting you on the spot, but maybe next time.
At least we're not putting you on camera. Just you can take your time through chat. Right. And let's go through the question, because which of the following exemplifies proper separation of duties? Right. You got A, operators are not permitted to modify the system time. B, programmers are permitted to use the system console. C, console operators are permitted to mount tape and disks. D, tape operators are permitted to use the system control. So we're going to give Michelle a little bit of time to answer that, see what she comes up with.
And do you mind if I walk through this one?
Let's walk through it. See where we come, but don't answer. Give Michelle a little bit of time.
Yeah. So let me just walk through. So operators are not permitted to modify the system time. Well, I'm going to say, okay, depends on the type of operator, right? System time is typically admin role stuff. B, programmers are permitted to use the system console. Typically, if you're a dev, you get access to system console, right, or command line interface. But this says which of the following exemplifies proper separation of duties.
So let's define that. So what's separation of duties, Joel?
Yeah, so separation of duties, I mean, like the one we talked about, I think question 88 was you're only getting access to the data that you need required to do your job. So remember, so if it exemplifies proper separation of duties, it should tell you, I don't know. Let's walk through the other ones again real quick. So C, console operators are permitted to mount tapes and disks. So, okay, if you have access to console, can you mount tapes and disks? Well, typically, yes. If you have access to the console, you can, through FDisk, et cetera, you can do that. And then it says tape operators are permitted to use the system console. So what I'm getting is a theme.
So what's the theme you're getting here? Because I can actually decipher it. Michelle's saying, I would say it's B, right? That's what she's coming up with.
She also said this is interesting. Not what she expected for sure. But that's okay. So she would say B would be closest to what they would specifically need. Yes, but
there's a catch
scope creep, right? Yeah. So I'm seeing, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing tape operators are permitted to use system console. I'm seeing programmers are permitted to use system console. So, and then I'm seeing console operators, which is both programmers and tape operators, are permitted to mount tapes and disks.
So there's a theme here, and if you can catch it, you can answer it. So do you see it, Joel?
So I'm seeing system time and being operators, and knowing that as a standard analyst or operator, you're not going to manipulate system time. That's
okay. Go ahead. Go back through it. Look at the question. Are permitted, are permitted, are permitted,
and are not permitted.
Separation of duty means that you don't have access.
All right, let's find out. Answer is A. Well done. Yeah, and Sean said not distinguishing between dev and prod. Yep, but I like that. You looked for the overarching theme. I was really focusing on operators and then the permission, but you're right. Separation of duties means you're splicing up permissions and saying what you can, but also cannot do. And I think that may be the more important one.
And this is the thing that we're walking you through these type of example question is trying to find what they're trying to say and then come up with what's the difference and how it relates to what the topic is or what the information they're looking for. And here it's proper separation. You're separating duties, so they're not going to have access. And you can see the theme, are permitted, are permitted, are permitted. Well, if it's are permitted for 3, the potential for the one to be, out of the norm is going to potentially be the right one.
Yeah, but I got to say down at the bottom, it takes my line, it basically explains the route I was taking was changing the system time would cause logged events to have the wrong time, right? An operator could commit fraud, covers tracks, and as offensive operators, like the first thing you would do is compromise the system, turn off logging, maybe change the time. I don't know, right? But yeah, ensuring that operators are not permitted to modify the system time is an example of separation of duties. So
yeah, then if you want to go and bring some of the answers up from the community, you got Sean, you need an admin permission to modify time. Then Michelle, poor Michelle, put this in a great question that might happen and how to work through it. She's saying thank you, and then the others are allowed. And Sean, that's exactly what we're talking about. So when you're deciphering, you have to look at the language of it, right? The grammar, what else is going on, just not the topic. Because I mean, Joel, you're technical, and you were looking at the technical stuff, the operator, the programmer, the console. But what's the language? What's the actual English? Yes, no, on, off, allowed, not allowed, permitted, not permitted. What were they really looking for?
You're spot on. Yeah. So Peter Franklin, also welcome, buddy. It's good to see you. He said, think about the privileges needed to complete the end result. Nice. So well done. So let's give a couple more shout outs real quick. Looks like we have some more people hopping on. Emmanuel, welcome. We also had Nabil, right? Mentioned you earlier. James Lee, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us. And we are just now transitioning from our CISSP question prep into the content of the day, which is focused around ICS and OT networks. Now, Brandon, that's not your specialty either, is it?
Not even close. But I have a family member that works in manufacturing and all this. So I've heard conversations around the dinner table.
That's fair enough. Now, while I am more in the IT side of things, I have actually a pretty big passion for like learning about the OT side of things. So I've spent a lot of time really digging into it. So I've also put together some really good content, and I even learned a thing or two while doing it. So you ready to jump in?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So when we're talking about ICS, it stands for Industrial Control Systems, and it's a form of computer management device that controls industrial processes and machines. So ICSs are used across a wide range of industries, including manufacturing, fabrication, electricity gen and distribution, water distribution, sewage processing, and oil refining, right? And really, the way somebody explained it to me once was ICS devices are things from on-off switches, right? Think like water distribution. Well, the pipe is either open or you're closing it, right?
Mhm.
The pressure is where it's supposed to be, or you're having an error and a failure, right? A few of the things or the different forms of ICSs that we're going to go over in today's session are DCSs, or distributed control systems. We're going to go over PLCs, or programmable logic controllers. We're going to go over HMIs, which are human machine interfaces. And then we're going to go over SCADA. And SCADA stands for supervisory control and data acquisition. And by the end of this, you're going to be able to tell the difference between the two, even though there's a ton of overlap. Good stuff?
Good stuff. No, totally makes
Cool.
sense. And then one thing to add is think is binary, right? On and off, ones and zeros. Right. That's the way my father-in-law explained it to me. It's either on or it's off.
Yep, spot on. Now, one of the things that I always get asked is, well, if I'm talking about IoT security, why do I need, why are you pushing IT security? Well, this is the picture I always talk about. Let me see if I can make that work. No, it doesn't. Oh, maybe. Okay. Now, if you look at this diagram, you're going to see the internet firewall and the corporate firewall on either side of the corporate network. Well, that blue box in this graph, that is the IT side of things. Now, what you're going to see is the only way to get into the OT or the ICS side of things is how, Brandon?
Right. It's to the network, right?
It's through that corporate network. So what we see a lot of the times, and a lot of the major breaches we've seen in the ICS or OT space, it's traversing through the IT network. And if you don't have good security hygiene or good network hygiene, they're able to then pivot into your OT or ICS environment and traverse back out. So that's where, I kind of come in. Is my company does the IT network security, and it's closely related to that OT side of things. So cool.
No,
now,
yeah.
When you look over at the ICS, you're seeing a couple things. You're seeing the supervision network, or your SCADA, and then you're seeing the production network, which is, you can see PLCs, you can see remote terminals, you can see the actual pumps and thermometers over there, and we're going to dig into those here in a bit. Cool?
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Now, the other thing is, when I was talking about overlap, this is kind of what the overlap looks like, and it is significant, right? So when we talk about OT as a whole, well, within OT, or operational technology, you have your industrial control systems bubble, and then within that, you have DCs and your SCADA systems. And as you can tell, there's, while ICS is completely in OT, DCs and SCADA overlap a lot. And it's important for you to be able to tell the difference come exam time. They may try to trip you up in the differences between the two.
For sure.
Cool. Now, before I move on, any questions around ICS, SCADA, or are you guys just waiting for me to explain it real quick?
Yeah, I'd actually like to know, is anyone actually work in this environment? It'd be good to hear kind of their insight and what they work with.
That is a great question. And if you do work in this industry, please, please, please give us all the feedback you can in the comments. I'm happy to throw it up on screen for everybody participating to jump in.
Yeah, I'd love to hear kind of some of the things that you're seeing, some of the challenges, right, with the environment. Some of the older systems, like from what I heard, some of them are archaic. Definitely.
Yeah, they don't evolve very quickly either, right? It takes a lot of work. So let's go ahead and jump into SCADA and talk about just briefly what a SCADA server, or the supervisory control and data acquisition, would look like. So let's go ahead and share that out to everybody. Now and I know it's sideways, and so you're probably seeing it fairly small, but what you see at the top is the HMI. And the HMI is a bunch of screens on a monitor, but really what an HMI is, and I'm going to show you here in a moment, it's the human machine interface between what you're able to see as an end user or analyst or operator and the devices you're looking at. So that top layer, you're seeing HMI, and it's moving over to a SCADA server, which can then control the object, right? And it says the SCADA system reads the measured flow and level, sending then the set points to the PLC. So when you drop down into the box below, you can see a few things on the right-hand side, such as, I think that's a radar or a radio tower with remote transition units, which then can touch temperature sensors. But inside that smaller blue box, you're seeing programmable logic controllers, or the PLCs, which are then attached to the industrial equipment. And you can see the PLC, you can compare the measured flow to the set point, control the pump, the speed, and it can match that to the set point given from the SCADA server. So it's a very high level example. Mm-hmm. Now, before we get too far into this, I want to show you what a human machine interface looks like. You may be like, Joel, how the heck are you going to do that? Right? Like, don't you need to be in the OT environment to find that out? Well, I would have to be if the world secured their OT and SCADA systems appropriately. But because we have things like Shodan, people have left a lot of these human machine interfaces publicly available to the internet. So that gives me the opportunity to show you a few of these vulnerable devices. Let's go ahead and, if I can find that article real quick.
Yeah, that URL.
That I promise you I had pulled up before this. Got it. Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead and expand this out a bit. But I want to show you guys, and this is really interesting. This is like, was my introduction to this, was from a red team perspective. So I get to show you this. Now, earlier in this article, it talks about, okay, you have a target, map out that target on a map, find the IP addresses associated with that organization, and then you can filter down and you can begin testing to see if any of these HMIs are publicly available to the internet. And that was me doing pen tests on industrial control systems. Well, these are a few examples that I've pulled up of, and can you see these okay, Brandon?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So the one at the top left, this is a water filtration facility in Colombia. And this is the human machine interface that actually is requiring a password. You can see the little key in the box maybe before you can get access to the whole menu. So they hit it at one point, and then they came back to it later, and they said the same HMI without the user authentication pop-up was there. Now, they don't know if the user already authenticated and left it, signed into, or if clicking something else in there would pull that authentication up. But you can see two different screens, and you can actually, they may have bypassed authentication just because it's publicly accessible to the internet. Now, if we scroll down, we can see this is a disinfection plant in Canada, actually. So your neck of the woods, right? Because Canada is a small part of the world. But you can actually see a big power symbol on that. No authentication needed, but you could actually turn off, you could likely turn off this service or this OT operation just by clicking that red button. And it's publicly accessible to the internet. And then on the right, they came back to it later, and you can see there's a warning message displaying an alarm condition for this purification and disinfection plant in Canada. So a couple interesting ones. Now, if we keep scrolling, there are tons of them. So this is a sterilization plant. And then if we talk oil, this is an oil and gas human machine interface. And if you keep going, there's some really, really interesting stuff. You can see these wells can be shut down or reset from an events page. These are oil and water levels in storage tanks. That's a scary thought if you're leaving this publicly accessible to the internet. And then you can see more production readings. You can scroll down here and see overviews. I mean, guys, look at this. More storage oil tanks and water levels. There's start and stop. Imagine if it's completely filled and you start one of these processes. And you're talking overflow, you're talking oil leaks, you're talking physical damage. And that's why protecting OT is so important. Pretty wild, right?
Oh, it is. I mean, you look at the destruction too, right? Some of these plants, and we'll talk about it later, like the internal destruction. If anyone actually manipulated any of these systems, you've got overheating, things like that, and the whole plant can go up, right?
It really can. Now, I wanted to show you guys one more video real quick. Let me see. And let's talk about, okay, so great. Oil, plant, water facilities, cool. But how does this relate to me? How does this relate to maybe a small business, right? Brandon, you have any ideas?
Well, I mean, yeah, if it gets affected, like if you look at these OT, like we're talking about here, if you don't have water, you don't have power, like all the things that we're looking at right now, and it takes you down. I mean, I know from my area, one of the generators blew in the area, and we were
Mhm.
down for 7 days. So no heat, no water, nothing.
Yeah, and imagine if one day you go to turn on the water and it just drops,
Yeah,
right?
there's nothing there. You have
And there
no
was
heat.
a hack of an OT cert for your water, your county's water. Crazy. So Sean Delane had a cool comment. I'll throw it up on the screen. I think only part of it's going to show for me, but it says my in-laws manufacture adhesive and release paper to pretty specific tolerances. Think FedEx envelopes and Amazon bags you get in the mail. If their manufacturing process were compromised by a hacker reprogramming the
Machines.
machines, their products would fail. You can imagine the damage and the reputational harm that would cause. Yeah, absolutely. Imagine if you send out a shipment of these envelopes and none of them stick. And
So now think of this. We're talking about manufacturing.
yeah,
Think even food
mm,
and manufacturing that. If one of the recipes, the ingredients is off by a little bit, it can taint the actual food. And imagine like we've had recalls for different types of meat, things along that line, no different. And it could be just a minor, issue in the manufacturing.
you're
So
right.
any of these can go off. Now think about if for us as security professionals, think of that someone would maliciously hacked it and did that with intent.
Yeah. And it's totally possible,
Yeah.
right? And it's typically done through the IT network and a pivot over to OT. Now, as you guys have seen with Sunburst, these hackers have a lot of juicy targets in the IT side of things. But if they were looking to cause physical harm, OT is where they're starting to go. Oh, that's really interesting, Sean. So Sean said they also do food grade adhesives, right? So imagine if the adhesives on your food, you could poison. I mean, you could hurt people, right? So man, yeah, the after effects of this could be significant, right?
So
If OT is breached. Go ahead.
so I want to ask Sean just a quick question. When you say food grade adhesive, are you talking about what they use for meat?
That's a good question. So we'll show you that in a minute, but I got a quick video I want to share with you guys of how this could, a product that you could buy for either your small business or even your home that could be around OT or operational technology. So remember those PLCs we showed, the programmable logic controllers, Brandon?
Yeah.
Cool. Check this out. This is a basically security access for your door of a small business. Here we go. There you go. So now I am a Ubiquity fanboy. So this is like a Unify starter kit that you can actually get for a small business, or like if you have a little marina or something that you want a group of guests and you can buy the access cards, etc. But what you saw was a programmable logic controller that runs Ethernet to these card readers, and boom, it can operate your magnetic entrances. Pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool, but always a question about how to compromise that, right?
Well, it's connected to an Ethernet cable. And what is it? It's an on-off switch, right? Now,
Right.
thankfully, Unify is a security, they've really focused on security, but if you had one of those logic controllers that was publicly available to the internet and buttons that could go on and off, boom, you could grant
Right.
access to certain facilities, right?
Or you can lock them down too. I've seen the other side of it.
That's true, right? So remember to have a fail open capability. So, all right, next up. So that we talked a little bit about SCADA. We talked a little bit about HMIs. We're going to go into some more detail about DCSs. Brandon, do you mind jumping into that and reading us
Yep.
the explanation?
Yeah, DCS, distributed control system units, are typically found in industrial process plants where the indeed with the need to gather data and implement controls over a large-scale environment from a single location is essential. An important aspect of DCS is the controlling element are distributed across the monitored environment, such as manufacturing floors or production line, and the centralized monitoring location sends commands out of those localized controllers while gathering status and performance data. A DCS might be analog or digital in nature, depending on the task being performed or the device being controlled. For example, a liquid flow valve DCS would be an analog system, where an electric voltage regulator DCS would likely be a digital system, and probably could be analytical if it's too old, right? If it's more older.
Yeah, so let's go through this, because I know I read those explanations for the first time. I was like, what the heck are they talking about? Like, how is that any different? So I personally believe that the pictures are going to show you exactly what the difference is. So I'm going to start by showing you some PLC or some controllers, right? Some logic controllers. This is exactly what I was talking about, but let me give you a more industrial template for this. So the first graphic I'm going to do is the PLC, or the programmable logic controller. And I'm going to show you what a PLC is on the internet, right? What can you buy? Can you buy one of these? And the answer is absolutely. So this is what a PLC looks like. This is a Siemens logic controller, or you can also have a Learn Lab, right? So that's a PLC training lab with a bunch of different PLCs on it for on-off switches, lights, all kinds of controls, but you can get one of those from Grainger, right? But that's a PLC. So now let's talk about that being implemented on a network and what that would look like and what a PLC is against a DCS. So first and foremost, a simple PLC, I just had it, here we go, is going to look like this. So what's a simple application you could use a PLC for? Well, let's talk about scanning beverages, right? It's operating a scanner or something that opens your door, right? You are able to plug one device right into the PLC, and it's able to operate that mechanism. So as it's scanned, it moves it along a conveyor belt, for example. Now, how does that compare to a DCS? Well, let me show you.
Mm-hmm.
So a DCS, remember, it's a distributed control system. So it's not just one device controlling everything. A distributed control system, you can actually see it runs down into its distributed control system, right? And you can see that is kind of the middle tier with the blue bumps down the middle. That's its specified hardware that goes with the software of the DCS. Now, one of the things about a DCS is it's going to require you to install its own set of software that can then manage those controllers. But then if you look below that, you can actually see a PLC being operated by this. But then you can also see a different type of PLC, and then you can also see other services being operated all by those same controllers.
Mm-hmm.
So what questions do you have about this, Brandon, as we move forward?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward in the sense of the difference. Like you're saying, one is kind of one control unit for one, device, where the distributor is multiple, right? When you want to think of it that way, and it's controlling multiple devices. And remember, it can be scalable over environment, right? It's not just one physical location, right? The DCSs can control over different, and that's what they're saying in the example here, is that it can be controlled over different areas and environments that you can be using a DSS, like large scale environments from a single location is essential, right? So as you're doing it, looking scalability, right, versus kind of one function, one area.
Yeah, spot on. Now, you may be like, well, why do I need a DCS? Can't I just have like a bunch of PLCs roll up? Well, here's the kicker. Like when we're talking about actually bringing that together, the reason why they did the whole DCS program, and yes, it requires more software, but when you look at a DCS system, what it's capable of doing is actually bringing together different types of protocols. So you can see, there on the left, you have Profibus, right, which is a protocol. You have fiber optic cables connecting certain things, and then you have Profinet. And those are the different things connecting your systems. So you have to be able to bring that together into a unified or a distributed control system so that you can manage all these different functioning OT systems from one place.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Does anyone have any questions about that, or actually any insight on their experience using that? Like Sean, I know your family members are working in this environment. Any insight that you'd like to share? Be good to kind of hear kind of that too, like just to kind of hear some real world examples.
Yeah, and Sean, I'm not sure if you actually know, do they use a DCS or are they using SCADA? And as I mentioned, there's a lot of overlap, so we're going to start digging into the differences between the two here momentarily. So let me see what else I have. Yeah, here's a quick, a prettier picture. Let me show you kind of what that would look like in a beverage plant, right? So when we're talking about actual implementation of this, check this out. So you can see there on the right-hand side, there are your PLCs, right? Your logic controllers, but then those feed up into a unified front, right? So you're bringing everything through there. You have the different PLCs and systems, and it looks like pressure gauges and thermometers. Well, all of those are going to feed up to a distributed control system.
Mhm.
All right. Cool. So now, when we talk about SCADA systems can operate as standalone devices, or they can also be networked together with other SCADA systems. They can also be networked with traditional IT systems as well. So sometimes I know the picture I put at the beginning is you have IT network, you have OT network. I promise you, most organizations aren't segmenting it that precise, right? They're not drawing a clear-cut line. Sometimes they're intermingled and it can get a little messy. Now, most SCADA systems are designed with minimal HMIs. Brandon, will you read through that next one on how you kind of control those? And I know we already showed some HMIs, but I'll start pulling up this next difference one.
Yeah, systems are designed with minimal human interfaces. Often they use mechanical buttons and knobs or simple LCD screen interfaces, similar to what you might have on a business printer or a GPS navigation device. However, network SCADA devices may have more complex remote control software interfaces.
Yeah, you got it. And one of the reasons why people are still using SCADA devices is because sometimes they have very specific use cases, right? And here's a good example. So DCSs, there's been software created that can bring together and use those specific use cases, right? Those specific protocols. Well, SCADA systems, if you have a one-off process that you need to run and there's a specific SCADA system that uses something specific, well, I guarantee you it's probably going to be cheaper to buy the SCADA system and just implement that. But as you can see from this picture, there's multiple SCADA systems being run in one environment, and they're not all interconnected. Well, on the DCS side of things, it's going to be more expensive. You're going to have to interconnect everything. There's probably going to be more security, but you're going to have to implement somebody else's software in order to bring it all together to manage it from a single pane of glass.
One thing you also have to just reminder for everyone too is a lot of times when they're manufacturing and setting up these systems, it's customized. It's a customized solution. It's not something that you're buying from a manufacturer, you're putting it out of the box. A lot of times, and I was talking to my father-in-law about this when he was doing engineering and helping plant set up. A lot of times they'd have to develop the code. You'd have to develop it to help to streamline the manufacturing. So they're working with the systems. They're working with these devices, the applications to modify it to make it streamlined and more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I got to pivot back over to our crew. Looks like Vivek just made it. Welcome, buddy. I know the feeling, man. These schedules these days have been insane. They said remote work would be awesome. Well, I find myself, and I don't know about you, Brandon, but working a lot more than that 40 hours a week. Sean Delane also said his physical access control system would be a PLC, 100%, right? You guys use Ubiquity? Probably not, but something similar, right? Yeah, and Peter Franklin's right there. He's like, hey, Vivek, he knows the feeling. And Peter, I'm not sure if Mark Manning has reached out to you since, but feel free to announce any news you have on here. Love to throw it up on the screen. Yep. And Vivek, you said, do you allow command line interface in SCADA? Talk to me more about that question. Is this coming from experience? Is this something that's an honest question? Because I would say devs may need command line interface to certain SCADA systems, depending on the functionality. We actually showed at the beginning of this session different human machine interfaces that were attached to SCADA systems that were publicly available to the internet, right? And these were GUIs, but things like power buttons, on-off switches, resets for these SCADA systems were publicly available. So Well, Peter, if you're all set to go, man, announce it on here. Let me throw it up on the screen, man, and we'll give you a round of applause. So come on, give us something more official than we're set to go. March 1st is the day, and I'll throw it up on the screen. All right. So hold on. Oh man, Vivek, man, you're gonna have to go back and watch the beginning of this afterwards. Brandon, you seen his questions?
I know he's trying to figure out. So what's this? What's Tascada? What's PLC?
No, he's talking.
CLI?
He's talking about CISSP question, but what about from a hacker standpoint? But we just covered all that, done some pen tests on ICS systems, and you can literally take a map of the world, find out where their locations are, figure out what IP addresses relate to that. Literally find the IP addresses related, check out Shodan. They may have publicly available human machine interfaces, and you could even pivot directly into their OT network. So really interesting stuff. Vivek, check out the beginning of the session. We had it on there. But yeah, hopefully Peter Franklin is typing something up. So Brandon, keep me honest.
Yeah, Emmanuel's asking one question there. I'll put on the screen for you.
Which one is more automated and which one is more manually operated? That's a great question. And that brings me to my next picture. So
we're here.
Yep. So let me go ahead and pull that up for you.
Yep.
I gotta find it real quick. Vivek distracted me. Well done, buddy. All right, here we go. Yeah. So when we're talking about the two, and these are potentially CISSP questions, right? Here we go. Emmanuel said, which one is more automated, and which one is more manually operated? So remember, the DCS, you're going to have an HMI and a PLC, or a human machine interface, and a logic controller software package. And the DCS is able to bring all those together into a single controller panel, right? Or GUI, where you can operate everything. And I'll show you an example here in a second. When you're talking about SCADA, now you're working with the individual PLC software and HMI software, and you don't have everything in a single pane of glass. So when you talk about one being more automated, it's going to be DCS. When you talk about one being more manually operated, it's going to be SCADA, because you're going to have those multiple HMIs, multiple PLC software. Each one has its own that you're going to have to maintain individually.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of think of a DCS as kind of like a SIM, kind of like a SOAR platform, right? Where you can bring everything together and there's orchestration built into it. Let me show you an example. Oh, there we go. All right, throwing it up. Peter Franklin has gone through a rigorous interview process, and he just got an offer to join the IronNet team as a solutions architect on March 1st. So everybody on LinkedIn, please give him a round of applause real quick for that. That is a huge, switching positions. And let me see if I got one here real quick for you. No, that's not the right one.
There we go.
Oh, congrats, Peter. That's a really big deal, man. We are excited to have you on the team. I was just talking about you today, and everybody's super pumped to have you. Now, we are a startup, and there are headaches, and it is a high-paced environment. So I hope you know what you're getting yourself into, man. We're really excited to have you.
Joel. You don't want to set that up you could be drinking from the fire hose. You're gonna going under a lot. He's gonna enjoy. It's a great team. We're
a startup, man. We are literally on some next level ish. It's gonna be fun. Cool. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's keep going. All right. Congrats, Peter, once again. Let us show you what a DCS kind of looks like. Here we go. Here we go. DCS is going to look something like this, right? So you can see here on the left-hand side, I know it's small, so bear with me, but you can see blocks and templates over here. You can see different drives. You can see different motors, dual speed motors, right? So you could buy a DCS that is compatible with multiple pieces of SCADA. And then from there, you can click and drag. You can dig into specific ones. You can see it supports systems, maintenance, generators, all of this. And you can see that all of the activity over here is a motorized valve, right? And all of the different capabilities it has, all rolled up into a single GUI. So, Emmanuel, back to your question. Automated, DCS, more manual process is going to be the SCADA side of things. Cool. Vivek said, ain't nothing wrong with no startup. No, man. I mean, straight up, though, from a solutions architect perspective, we get to get him in the weeds with product, with sales, with marketing. I mean, hey, man, we're small, we're agile. And Peter just said he's ready for the challenge. So we're ready to have you. All right. Where are we at? You gotta bring me back around.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great graphic. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the capabilities of each. So let me go ahead and pull that
and
up.
the differences.
Yeah, the differences are huge. Believe it or not. Okay, well, let me pull up this one first, and then I'll pivot over to that one because I'm going to have to take a screenshot of it real quick. So, Brandon, I'm going to let you talk to this one and tell everybody why this is the case.
Well, the SCADA and the PCA, give me a second, I'm just pulling out this image. So when you're looking at, like, you're talking about the safety and security, or is that what we're looking at right now, Joel?
Yes, sir. 100%.
Well, I mean, when you look at, like we were talking about with the network connection, right? What do you guys, when you see this, what do you see as being the most secure? And I want to kind of get a little bit more engaged with the audience here, because you guys are learning this as much as we are, right? You can kind of see with the safety from the DCS and the SCADA being, a lot of controls in different environments. What would be the most secure environment that you see, and why? I want to get you guys to engage and see what you guys think.
Yeah, and it's funny. Richard Bird just hopped on. Richard Bird is our kind of our OT SCADA. He's handling our. I want to say he's VP for our energy, oil and gas vertical here at IronNet. So really, he's dealing with, hey, you guys have OT IT. Why is it important to protect your IT networks? Richard, you probably get that question more than anyone else. Now, question, do they come back to you and tell you if they have DCs or SCADA? I'm curious what your insight is into the OT side of things. But yeah, so I mean, talking about the DC side of things, you're bringing everything into a into a centrally managed platform. You're going to have visibility into that, right? There may be some security features built into that DCS. So you're going to have increased safety and security in a DCS environment. Now, there may be times when you're going to have to not have a DCS and you're just going to have SCADA. Once again, you don't have a single pane of glass. You're going to have to manage each of those individually. That's going to reduce the amount of safety or security you have around that deployment. Brandon?
And then you're looking at, like you said, the level of access, right? These are more simplistic systems. So the level of security and the controls that are put in place to them sometimes are not there.
Right.
Like you said, they're very binary, right? On and off, right? So there is limited, if not any security at all.
Yep, 100%. And think about it, Brandon. You got the automation of the DCS. You may even have like access controls built into that, right? So now, whereas you'd have to go in and configure it for each one, and as people leave, you have to go back into each one and configure that for those individuals. You have one panel that's going to control all of that.
Right.
So cool.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about, since I just took a screenshot of this, let's talk about what each use case would be for these, right? So when we talk about PLC or SCADA systems, you're talking about 1 to 2 operators, right? You're talking about set it and forget it.
Pretty easy, pretty simple, right?
Kind of, but is it always that way?
Well, you look at talk of CIA, like the CIA triad, right?
Right.
If it's access, availability, and it's very easy, where's the confidentiality? Where's the security of that?
There you go. Well, and you talk about for future modifications. That's what it's designed for. But do things change constantly, Brandon?
For them, no. I mean, when you look at those environments, they're very minimal. Like future modifications. Well, I mean, when you're talking about manufacturing, it's very rare they're going to make a change, because seconds in manufacturers is millions of dollars. Right.
Well, let's talk about your IT network, though. Is your IT network constantly changing?
Oh, of course. Right. Of course.
So if your OT network is connected to your IT network, which is constantly changing, and this system was designed for future modifications, and you change routing somewhere on IT, that could impact your OT, right? So now when you get into PLC or DCS, you have to consider size, integration, expansion, potentially local technical support, right? If you have a logic controller that doesn't have a human machine interface that's accessible through your network or through your VPN or publicly available to the internet, right? Do you have advanced controllers? And then when you get to the DCS, okay, now we're talking about multiple controllers, high redundancy, which Vivek just mentioned, right? So DLCs have redundancy due to its distributed nature, integration of applications, and then you can also expand it, which is huge. I mean, huge, but what are the cons?
Right.
It's going to cost you a lot more. You have to purchase their software. You have to, if you want to expand, guess whose hardware you also have to buy?
Right.
The
Well, you also have to
DCS,
look
right?
you also look at care and feed, right?
Yep. 100%. Yeah, care and feeding, right? You got to be able to, you have to update their hardware along with your other hardware, right? For your SCADA network related stuff. So yeah, Peter also said a big bonus is less software is needed to implement the DCS, right? So change control is much easier, right? Because you have that centralized viewpoint, Peter. So great point, right? You have that one controller or multiple controllers, but up in one distributed control system that you can then push through instead of going into each and every one and making those changes. Great point. All right, so let's head back and see where we're at. It does look like a few of the notes, by the way, when we're talking about malicious computer incidents that have happened in SCADA networks, Stuxnet was the big one, right? This happened first uncovered in 2010, and it was thought to have been developed since at least 2005, right? If you guys don't know about Stuxnet, it was a worm that was introduced into an air-gapped network in order to spread across SCADA systems. And what it was doing was it was supposed to attack the Iranian nuclear program. So the Iranian nuclear program was controlled by OT systems. And what it did was, don't quote me on this, but it was something about changing the velocity of centrifuges would basically destroy the payload or the plutonium. It's not plutonium. Give it to me. The nuclear. You guys will know. Somebody will correct me on that. But it basically would destroy the actual physical system, and it put the Iranian nuclear program back years. Was it Israeli? Was it the US? Well, there's a few documentaries now. You guys have to go out and watch it. So also, Brandon, hit on this because I think that's important to touch on.
Yeah. Many SCADA vendors have started implementing security improvements into their solutions in order to prevent or at least reduce future compromises. And Sean's saying it's uranium.
Uranium. Thank you. Plutonium. All right. So let's do a quick recap before we wrap up today's show. So we got a couple minutes left. Let's talk about PLCs and DCs. One last time. So when you take a look at this, you have your PLC on the right, you have your DCS on the left. So you have a PLC there in the middle, which is connected to a system, right? It has its own software. It could be potentially something similar looking for a SCADA system, right? One SCADA system connected to one GUI, right? It will have its own GUI, and then that'll be connected to certain devices, whether, like Sean said, it's his access control system or a manufacturing plant, etc. Well, the DCS, you can see there's a number of controllers that are then linked to that distributed control system, which can then act for scale, change control, as Peter mentioned, and is more automated in nature.
No, they're very true.
How do we do?
Good. Yeah. And we just got a couple of comments. Yeah, it's not coming up in our chat, but you got Sean saying wind farms use SCADA. Vivek was saying Pete smoking guns. Sean actually confirmed what you're asking about is uranium enriched. Richard was saying Siemens step 7 controllers. And then Vivek was just confirming it was uranium. And then Richard was saying change the speed of the centrifuge. So that's what they're actually doing, was changing the speed, right? So then I think it would overheat.
Yep. Yeah, so it would overheat or something, but it would basically destroy the centrifuge. So there's some really cool stuff out there on Stuxnet. Obviously, since then, there are a ton of, OT systems that have been compromised. So I challenge you, check out some of the OT systems and the malware that's been created since. And then what are the types of tools that can be used against it, right? We talked about IT network detections to help protect the IT, but then what about OT analytics? Well, OT analytics are out there, right? And there's companies like Dragos and a number of others that they create baselines of these OT networks. So what are standard behaviors for these OT systems, right? Are they typically on during these times, off during these times? And then they can detect anomalies and provide insights to the operators and security analysts around those systems. Now, do you remember Bertrand Trebonso?
No.
Well, Bertrand Trabotso was on a few of our earlier, like first, 7 episodes, but he actually got his first cybersecurity job and he got dropped right into ICS and SCADA systems.
Oh, wow.
So really exciting, and once again, there's so many avenues in cybersecurity you can get into. So really, really exciting stuff.
Yeah. So Peter was saying Stuxnet was still an issue as of 2020, believe it or not.
No way.
And then Vivek saying on the topic of fire suppression systems for nuclear plants. So still, like, I would probably say, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably still a lot when it comes to security posturing for, these types of systems, OT.
Yeah, and Sean also said baselines are super critical for the manufacturing processes. Once again, I don't know why I'm not seeing that in Restream, Brandon, but I would have loved to throw these up on the screen. Yeah, huge stuff. Stuxnet, one of the things about it was it escaped that air gap network, right? And it started spreading and going rampant, and it's still an issue in 2020, right? As are a lot of worms that are out there that are constantly hitting new devices that touch the internet. So Richard Bird, change the speeds of the centrifuge. Yep. Thank you guys for all of your content. You guys literally make the show worth doing.
Yeah. Oh,
so thank you. Once again, round of applause. Can we give him a round of applause, Brandon? Thank you guys for being here, guys. We seriously appreciate you. And that was episode 27, Brandon?
Episode 27.
Killing it. So, guys, we are well on our way.
Go ahead.
And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Not yet. Hold on a second. So, guys, how are you liking the Tuesday and Thursday? Let us know. Give us a claps. Give us a hands up. We kind of want to know how you guys are liking the information that we're going through it, trying to go through it a little bit faster. I know more people are actually preparing and writing either Vivek's second time doing the CSSP, and other people are preparing for it. Let us know what you think. I mean, we want to get people on here, provide you guys value. We, like Joel saying, we learn as much from you guys as you guys are learning from us going through the content. So we appreciate you being here, inviting your colleagues, your friends to come out and share, because it's all of us that are doing it. So thank you so much from Joel and myself. We want to make sure that you guys learn as much as you can, and just keep, striving for cybersecurity, kind of the posture and knowledge, because this is what we're all doing. We're in this day in and day out.
Yep, so absolutely.
So I'm sorry to say a lot of thank yous and all that. Go ahead, Joel.
I was just going to say, no, absolutely. We learn a ton, and without you guys, we wouldn't even know if plutonium versus, yeah, exactly.
Uranium.
Uranium. Thank you. So Sean said Tuesday, Thursday is great. Awesome. We're going to keep doing it. We want to get you guys this content quick. Even after we're done with all the content, we're going to do some recaps. We're going to do some heavy question sessions for you guys to really prep you for this. Salome, I also owe you that Discord server for the Security Plus prep. Maybe we'll go back and you'll remind me. Yep. Yeah. Or message me directly on LinkedIn, guys. Once again, if you know anybody else you want to start studying with for the CISSP Security Plus, let us know. Have them send me an invite on LinkedIn, and we will see you guys on Thursday for the next Cyber Incision live stream. You ready, Brandon?
Ready. Have a good night, guys.
That's all we had. Signing off, everybody. See you soon.